Hey guys, let's talk about polynomials. All right. So for 1, 2, and 3, it's asking you to identify and name the degree of the polynomial. So okay. um, so if you have every one of these falls under the umbrella of polynomial. But if you have one term, two term, or three terms, they also have special names. So for if you have one term, this is a monomial because mono means one. And then if you have two terms, it's a binomial because bi is two. And then three is trinomial. And then again, anything above that is just given polynomial. Okay. And then if it's asking you for the degree of the polynomial, then you're looking for the exponent. If it's a monomial, it's just the exponent, the only one. So here it's x squared. If this was x with no exponent, it would be 1. If this was just a constant term, it would be 0. So this would be my degree here is 2 because my highest exponent is 2. On 2 and 3, I have more than one term. So I need to check every term and see which one has the highest exponent. Okay, on number 2, if you don't see a number or a variable, then it's understood to be y to 0. If you just see a y, then the exponent is understood to be 1. So as for number 2 here, I have a power of 0 and I have a power of 5. So this is going to be degree 5. On 3, I have y cubed, y squared, and then y to the 0, right? You want the biggest one. So this is going to be d3. Okay, so that's 1, 2, and 3. Right, for 4, anytime you're adding polynomials, the parentheses are there just for show. So you can drop polynomials and say 2x plus 3 plus 3x minus 17, and then combine like terms. 2x and 3x is 5x. 3 minus 17 is negative 14. There's that. All right. On number 5, it doesn't matter how many terms you have. If my separation is only, if the separation of polynomials is just a plus sign, then I drop the parentheses and get to work. Okay. 2y cubed minus 6y plus 4y to the fifth is 5y cubed plus 9y. Now, at this point, this is where I would take a second and label all of my like terms. So right here, I have y to the fifth, 4 to the fifth. I have 2y cubed, negative 2y cubed, and positive 5y cubed, 6y, 9y. And then I just take it one step at a time, combining like terms. 5 plus 4, 5y to the fifth plus 4y to the fifth is 9y to the fifth, negative 2y plus 5y cubed plus 3y cubed minus 6y plus 9y is plus 3y. Right? Which you combine all like terms, all your like terms, that's it, and you're done. Any of these polynomial add, subtract, multiply, whatever, when you do it vertically, it's actually, in certain situations, it's actually easier. So I just add my columns. 9 minus 7 is positive 2, negative 2y cubed plus 5y cubed, and it's going to be plus 3y cubed. It's going to be 14y to the sixth, right? And everything should, you just want to make sure, but everything should be like terms over like terms. So, and that's all you do here. Right? If you're paying attention, you'll notice I just messed that up. With all the sixes there, I got confused, but 4 and 8 is 12, not 14. So, good idea to check your work. On 7, right, 6 and 9 is 15, plus 15. 8 and 9 is 17, so plus 17x. And then I don't have anything to add to the 4x squared, so it just comes down. It is positive. And again, I don't have anything to add to the 9x cubed, so I just bring it down. And there you go. There's that. Right? Now, when you're subtracting polynomials, you want it, the first parentheses is there just for show. Doesn't want the other one to feel left out. Right? But then when you drop the second one, you have to distribute that negative. So this is going to be minus 20x minus 8. And then again, combine like terms. But 18x minus 20x is going to be negative 2x. Plus 12 minus 8 is going to be plus 4. Negative 2x plus 4. Okay. Again, let's distribute the negative through the second. The second parentheses, that's going to be minus 5x to the sixth, minus 9x cubed, and two negatives like positives, so it's going to be plus 14. And then again, take your time, find your like terms. So I got x to the sixth, x to the sixth, x cubed, constant term, constant term. Okay. All right, so I got 7x to the sixth minus 5x to the sixth is going to be 2x to the sixth. Negative 18x cubed minus 9x cubed is going to be minus 27x cubed. Okay. And then you have negative 15 plus 14 is going to be minus 1. Minus 1. Okay. Let's do it again. We have 4x to the sixth minus 6x to the fifth plus 19 minus 5x to the fifth minus 9x to the sixth minus 20. Right? X to the sixth, x to the sixth, x to the fifth, x to the fifth, constant term, constant term. Okay, so we got 4 minus 9, so that's going to be negative 5x to the sixth. Negative 6 minus 5, that's going to be minus 11x to the fifth. 19 minus 20, that's going to be minus 1. Okay. 11, you could do this one of two ways. You could do this as a, you could say one term at a time and just take your time. So that's going to be 9 minus negative 2. So that's the same thing as saying 9 plus 2, and that would be 11. So you could do it that way, or you could just turn this to a positive and distribute that negative. This would be plus a negative 7y to 6 plus 17y plus, and then it's just 11. It's 27y cubed. And then 4 minus, it's going to be negative 3y to the sixth. So a couple different ways to approach it, but this is your answer. All right, so on 12, if we work it without distributing, this is going to be 1 minus negative 3. 1 minus 8, there's two negatives, it's going to be 4. Negative 4 minus negative 8 is going to be plus 8, so that's going to be positive 4. Negative 2 minus negative 6 is going to be plus 6, and it's going to be plus 4x to the fifth. 4x to the sixth minus 7, it's going to be negative 3x to the sixth. Okay, so between 11 and 12, those are two different approaches. Pick one. The process is the same either way, but pick the approach that you like better and go with it. 13 and 14, don't let yourself get overwhelmed by such problems. Okay. Just take it one step at a time. On 13, I'm going to take this inside, and I'm going to drop the parentheses and combine like terms. So I'm going to keep the brackets for now. So I got 1.6 x cubed plus 7.4x squared plus 4.4 plus 6.8x minus 2.1. I'm going to go ahead and distribute this negative. This is going to be minus 3.6x squared plus x plus 9.8. Okay. Combine like terms. So I have a like term in my brackets, my constant terms. This is going to be 1.6 x cubed plus 7.4x squared plus 6.8x. And then that's going to be 2.3. So plus 2.3 minus 3.6x squared plus x plus 9.8. All right. Find your like terms. So I only have one x cubed, so I don't need to write that. It should be a square. I have a square here, a square there. I have an x, constant term, constant term. So since 1.6x cubed didn't have anything to go with it, it just comes down. All right, and then you have 7.4x squared minus 3.6x squared, and that should be 3.8x squared, so plus 3.8. 6.8x plus 1x, that's going to be plus 7.8x. Okay, and then plus 9 and 2 is 11. 3 and 8 is 11, so that'll be in decimal form, that'll be 1.1. So it's going to be 12.1. Again, when it comes to this decimal stuff, you can use your calculator. And you don't have to worry about doing it in your head. Now, 14 is a little more complicated as far as there's more to do. and there's more to keep up with, but there's no decimals. So it's kind of a wash compared to 13. But here, I'm going to distribute that negative on the back end. So it's going to be 9x to the 8th plus 12 plus 2x squared minus 4x squared, or 2x to the 6 minus 4x squared. Close bracket. Because I have parentheses inside the bracket, I'm just going to do minus and bracket this real quick. It's going to be 60x to the 8th plus 10x to the 4th. It's 4x plus 10x squared minus 4x minus 3. Right? I'm going to combine like terms. You'll notice that over here I have a plus 4 and a minus 4x, so they fall out. Right? So let's clean everything up. 9x to the 8th plus 2x to the 6th minus 4x squared plus 12. I'm just going to put it in descending order. Now I'm going to distribute the negative. So it's going to be minus 6x to the 8th plus 10x to the 4th minus 10x squared plus 3. Okay, there's a lot going on. So find your like terms. I have an x to the 8th here and here. I don't have another x to the 6th. I have an x squared here and here. And then I have a constant term here and here. Everything else is just going to come down. So 9 minus 6 is 3. 3x to the 8th. The 2x to the 6th is just going to come down. I have a 10x to the 4th. I'm going to bring down. And then the x squares, I got negative 4 and negative 10. So it's going to be minus 14x squared. And then you got 12 plus 3 is 15. So a little bit of everything going on here. But there you go. Okay, so shifting gears when you get to 15. We're just dealing a lot with exponents. So when you multiply on like bases, you add your exponents. So 2 squared times 2 cubed is the same thing as saying 2 to the 2 plus 3, which is 2 to the 5th. Okay, and so that's 2 to the 5th power, which sometimes they may ask you to solve it. Right now, I just want you to be able to rewrite it as 2 to the 5th. On 16, you're just adding your exponents. You have y to the 5th, y cubed, y to the 7th. So this is going to be y to the 5 plus 3 plus 7, which is 15. Okay. When you raise the power to a power, you multiply. So I got 5 cubed raised to the 10th power. So it's going to be 5 to the 30th. Okay. Now, here, this is 5x. This is the same thing as saying 5x times 5x times 5x. And if you need to write it out that way, that's perfectly fine. You just want to make sure you keep all the missing parts. And what you don't want to do, which I see a lot of students do, is they say they'll get the x cubed part just fine, but they'll see something like this, and they'll say 5 times 3 and put 15. That's incorrect. It's 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. So my answer is going to be 125 x cubed. Okay. All right. Page 2. Same thing here. The same thing as writing it multiple times, but this is another way of writing it is saying 4 to the 4th times. You already know when you raise the power to the power, you multiply. So this is going to be x to the 28th. And then you need to figure out what 4 to the 4th is. Right? This is going to be 256 x to the 28th. Okay. When you have a negative raised to an odd power, the answer is going to stay negative. So this is going to be negative 64 x to the 15th. Because remember, it's 4 cubed, and 4 cubed is 64 x to the 15th. Okay. When you get to 21, 22, and 23, you're multiplying these things. You no longer raise them to a power, but you start with your numbers and then just kind of check things off. Okay, so 7 times negative 9 is negative 63. X times x to the 4th times x to the 7th is you add your exponents. So it's going to be x to the 11th. Okay, when you multiply fractions, you multiply across the top, across the bottom. So 1 times 1 is 1. 9 times 5 is 45. And then when you raise the power to, when you multiply like bases, you add the exponents. So this is 9 plus 3, which is 12. Notice you have two negatives. This is going to be positive. Again, multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom. So this is going to be 1 over 14. And 6 plus 9 is 15, so this would be x to the 15th. And the answer is positive. Okay. Now, when you get to 24, you're just taking whatever's out front and giving it to everything here. So 12x times x is 12x squared. 12x times 4 is 48x. Okay, that's it. Um, Same thing on 25. Just watch out for that negative sign. You got to make sure you distribute it. So when you do that, you have negative 3 times negative 6 is 18. X cubed times x to the 6 is x to the ninth. Negative 3 times positive 7 is negative 21. X cubed times x squared is x to the fifth. Okay. On 26, you need to know the area formula of a triangle, which is simply 1/2 base times height. And then once you know that, you can plug everything in. It tells you the base is 10x, and it tells you the height is 4x plus 5. Now, it's actually pretty easy because what's half of 10? 5. So you can actually rewrite this as 5x, 4x plus 5, and that becomes really simple after that. So 5 times 4 is 20. You got x squared. 5 times 5 is 25, so you got 25x. Now, you have inches times inches. So this is going to be inches squared, squared inches. When you're dealing with dimensions and stuff like that, like area, volume, stuff like that, you want to make sure that you um, include your units. Okay. Um, Now, on 27, you have 4x. 4x, and I'm going to give it to the x. I'm going to give the first term 4x to everything on the inside of the other one. It's going to be 4x squared. 4x times negative 2 is negative 8x. And then you move on. You're finished with the 4x. You move on to the 2. And the first parentheses give it to everything in the back. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. So 4x squared. Negative 8x plus 2x is going to be negative 6x minus 4. There you go. You always want to make sure you clean things up, get rid of or combine like terms as you can. All right. Here, I'm going to take the x and I'll give it to everything. So it's going to be x times x squared is x cubed. X times 6x is 6x squared. X times negative 10 is negative 10x. Negative 6. All right. Now you're through with the x. Let's move on to the negative 6. This is going to be minus 6x squared uh, minus 36x plus 60. Okay. Now, you'll notice that I have a plus 6x and a minus 6x. Those are going to fall out. I have a like term here and here. So this is going to be x cubed minus 46x plus 60. All right. Same thing on 29. It's just more terms. X to the fourth plus 4x squared minus 9x plus 12x cubed plus 48x minus 12 times 9 is 108. Um, I have one like term, and that's my x's. So x to the fourth plus 12x cubed plus 4x squared. It's going to be 48 minus 9. It's going to be 39 plus 39x minus 108. Okay. All right. 30 is tricky, so follow along closely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 10 and give it to every term. Okay, so I got negative 40. 10 times x, or 10 times 7 is 70, so it's going to be plus 70x. Now, you'll notice um, I don't have an x squared term. I have an x cubed. So I'm going to skip some space, and that's going to be plus 10x cubed. That'll be important in a second. All right, now I'm done with the 10. Now I got x to the negative 4, so it's minus 4x. When you're doing this, you're creating that vertical addition. You want to make sure that your terms are aligned. So you got x times 7x, it's going to be plus 7x squared. Now you start to see why I moved uh, that 10x cubed out further so that I had space for this. And then you have x cubed times x, that's going to be x to the fourth. So I'm going to put that x to the fourth out here. Okay. Um, and I'm adding, so don't forget that. So I got negative 40, just bringing it down. 70 minus 4 is going to be plus 66 x, and 7x squared, 10x cubed, plus x to the fourth. So as long as you keep like terms on top of like terms, that one's not too bad. But if you're not careful, that can really screw you up. All right. 31. I'm going to just say x times 6x. So it's going to be 6x squared. X times 11, it's going to be 11x. And it's going to be minus 18x. And then minus 33. Clean it up. Yeah, 6x squared. That's going to be minus 7x minus 33. Right, we're just multiplying here. On 32, you have x times x squared. That's going to be x cubed. You have negative 4x. Move on to the negative 6. You get negative 6x squared. And then plus 24. Now, you could leave it like this, but we really like to see things in descending order, which means I'm going to start with my x cubed, then step down to x squared, then step down to x, then step down to my constant term. So I'm just going to rearrange these. Okay. Yeah. When you get to number 33 and 34 and 35, you'll notice that everything is the same except for the two signs in the middle. All right. So watch what happens when this, if everything's the same except the signs in the middle. Watch this. You have x times x is x squared. X times negative 6 is negative 6x. 6 positive 6 times x is plus 6x. And then 6 times negative 6 is negative 36. All right. You'll notice the middle term falls out, and I'm left with x squared minus 36. Okay. Every time you see this scenario where you have the same thing in both parentheses, and the only thing that's different is the sign, you have one positive, one negative, the middle term will always fall out, and it looks something similar to this. Okay. Your first term squared, your last term squared. Right. And make sure you subtract in your final answer. So it's going to be 49x squared minus 77x plus 77x. And then minus 121. Middle term falls out. And so this is going to be 49x squared minus 121. Right. This is x to the 10th, but don't get hung up on the fact that it's higher than x squared. Yes, it is, but that doesn't change how you work it. X to the 10th times x to the 10th. You're multiplying on that basis, so you add the exponents. So this is going to be x to the 20th minus 9x to the 10th plus 9x to the 10th minus 81. Okay, again, in this scenario, the middle term is going to fall out. So I got x to the 20th minus 81. Okay, now on 36, 37, 38, students often miss these because they forget that middle term. Don't forget the middle term, right? If you need to, remind yourself that I can rewrite this as x cubed plus 6, x cubed plus 6, because all that exponent does, that square, is just telling you to write it twice, right? So this is going to be x to the 6th because I'm adding my exponents, and then plus 6x cubed plus 6x cubed plus 36. Clean it up. X to the 6 plus 12x cubed plus 36. This one I do have a middle term. Okay. And I do have a middle term. I can't stress that enough. You do have a middle term, and you don't, if you don't include that middle term, it is wrong. You can, if you leave it in this form and just square the first term and square the last term, you'll get really close. But if you don't have that middle term, it is wrong. Okay. So 3x minus 8, 3x minus 8. Um, okay. Same process, just do it one step at a time. 64. All right, so it's going to be 9x squared minus 48x plus 64. Okay. 2x squared minus 7. 2x squared minus 7. That's going to be 2 times 2 is 4. That's going to be x to the 4th. Right, that's going to be 14 squared minus 14x squared plus 49. Clean it up. minus 28x squared is 39. Okay. All right. You ever see a problem like this where it says evaluate, and they give you some expression, and they say, hey, x is this and y is this? All that means is you're going to plug it in. So you got 3y squared says 3, open parentheses, plug in the y, 8 squared, minus 4, open parentheses, 5, open parentheses, y, 8. Okay. So 3 times 4, I'm sorry, 8 squared is 64, times 3, it's going to be 3 times 64, minus uh, 4 times 5 is 20, 20 times 8 is 160. So this is going to be 192. 192 minus 160, and that's going to be 32. So anytime you have to evaluate, it's going to give you a whole number as an answer. So there's 39. Yeah. This problem comes with a figure. The figure is almost not necessary. However, it tells you that the width is 28 feet and the y is 29 feet. So, but you have to watch out for something. It says 2x is 28. So make that quick calculation that 2x is 28 and find out what x is by itself. It's going to be 14. So at that point, you just start plugging everything in, right? You have v equals to open parentheses, x is 14 squared, y is 29. Okay, so 29, and then plus 1 half y. X is going to be 14 again, squared, times 29. Now it's asking you to round to the nearest whole number. So a couple things. You want to type this to your calculator as is, preferably. If you need to do it term by term, you can also do that, depending on how your calculator is set up. But when you plug it in as is, when you get to the 1 half, I would just put in 0.5. Just replace that with, it's the same thing. All right, but that keeps you from having to fiddle with fractions in the middle of trying to, in the middle of trying to write that. Also, if you don't know, your calculator has a pi button somewhere. Either it is a dedicated pi button, uh, or it's one of the special functions that you're either going to have to push, like the second key or the shift key or something like that, to get to the pi. And then you just plug it in. Pi is a decimal that doesn't end and doesn't repeat. Okay, so this is why it's telling you to round, because it's going to give you a long string of decimals that at some point is going to end on the calculator, but it does go on forever. So it says round to the nearest whole number. Remember your rounding rules. So if I'm if I'm looking at 5.6 and I want to round to the nearest whole number, then I look at the number right behind the decimal, and if it's 4 or less, I keep the number the same. If it's 5 or higher, I round up. So if I'm rounding up to the nearest whole number here, it's going to be a 6. Okay, so but all in all, when you crunch these numbers, you're going to get 20,296, and you're finding volume. So your units are feet, and when you're done with volume, it's feet cubed. Okay? Yeah. Right, let's multiply a little more. On 41, you're just going to multiply 3 times 8, and you get 24. X squared times x is x cubed. Y times y is y squared. You simply ask yourself, how many x's do I have? How many y's do I have? Well, I have 2 in the first one, 1 in the second. As far as x's, I have 2 x's in the first, 1 in the second, and I have 1 y in each parentheses. So how many do I have? 2. How many x's do I have? 3. And that's that. Okay. On 42, I'm just going to take what's out front and give it to everything. Okay, so 9 times 2 is 18. X times x is x squared, and then you have the y. 9 times 8 is 32. You don't have another x, so it's just x, and then y times y is y squared. Okay, again, you can write this twice, and I suggest you do it until you get in the habit of putting that middle term. Okay, so it's going to be x to the fourth minus 4x to the fourth y to the y squared minus 4x squared y squared. That should be x squared. And then plus 16 y to the fourth. Okay, so when I multiply that out, that's going to be x to the fourth minus 8x squared y squared minus, or excuse me, plus 16 y to the fourth. You have on 44, 3x and 2x is going to be 6x squared. 3x times 9y is 27xy. 3x times 1 is 3x. 8y times 2x is going to be 16xy. 8y times 9y is plus 72y squared. And then 8y and 1 is going to be 8y. Okay, again, track down your like terms. I have an xy here and an xy here. Everything else is different. So there's not a clear, when you have multiple variables, there's not always a clear descending order. So you just kind of make it up. And since your test is going to be multiple choice, it should be easy which one goes where. You got 6x squared. That's going to be plus 27 and 16 is plus 43xy. And then I just kind of bring everything else with it. Plus 3x, bring it down, 72y squared plus 8y. Okay, combine what you can, bring down the rest. And then last one, you have x squared times x to the fourth is going to be x to the sixth y, and then plus x to the fourth plus 5x squared plus 5x to the fourth y, plus 5x squared plus 25. All right, I have 5x squared and 5x squared. Everything else I'm just going to kind of bring down. I have x to the sixth y. I do have a plus 5x to the fourth y plus x to the fourth plus 10x squared plus 25. Okay, and that's it. Do you have any questions? Feel free to reach out or look it up. I'll see you in class.